At the age of 8, I went to the residential school in Alert Bay, and I guess sort of when in retrospect now I can see, you know, that the change in the way I was brought up was so drastic. I mean, before that, you know, as a child in my home villages, I was respected as an individual. I was allowed to speak, you know, my mind and be able to share what I thought with other people. When I got to the residential school, of course, I only knew a few words in English, like, you know, hello and yes and no. And so once I got to the residential school and the fact that we were not allowed to speak our native language, I ended up internalizing most things, you know. I ended up becoming a very quiet little girl and became a very obedient little girl and seemed to fit in well in a residential school life. However, at the age of 10, I went to what you call a preventorium because I had pleurisy, and then later on developed TB in my voice box. So I was there for 2 years, and probably in the residential school, those were probably the 2 hardest years of my life because we had no contact with anyone outside of the staff and the other patients. And I'd never seen my parents at all in that period. And really at that time, I thought my parents had really deserted me. And so when I came out of the out of the preventorium and went back to the residential school, I had already determined at that time that that whatever happened to me, I had to, you know, it was something that I had to do myself, that there wasn't anyone there really for me, even my parents, because we only went home in the summertime, and when we were home, we were treated like guests, you know, like we weren't being taught the different things that we should have learned at the different ages as you grow up in a traditional lifestyle. So, and I was, I guess, I left school in grade 11, and 2 years later, my mother passed away after giving birth to my youngest sister, and so I stayed home for a few years, you know, being a surrogate mother to my younger brothers and sisters. And I had, there's 13 of us in the family, and so I was the third oldest, and I had all, you know, my younger brothers and sisters. Especially the 4 youngest ones, they were just like my children, and it's interesting. I really honestly thought that I had survived the residential school unscathed, that I had managed to adapt. I adapted well, and it wasn't till probably in the last 10 to 12 years, I would say, that I started to realize just how much it affected me. And in my healing journey, I went through everything. You know, like as a young person, I was I became a devout Anglican, and until I started asking questions and my questions were not answered, I started to see things happening in the Christian world that I didn't agree with. And so my own spiritual journey was, to me, it was sort of in a plateau for a long time. I got married. I married a non-native person. So I was away from my community altogether and lived for probably a period of 16 years as a middle-class housewife. And I had 5 daughters and 2 stepchildren from that marriage. And it's it was only after really the breakup of my marriage, which was about 13 years ago, that that I started to find out really who I was. You know, my healing journey through that breakup, which was very painful, you know, was hard, but it led me to, you know, once I left, like we had lived in Victoria when my children were growing up, and after the breakup of my marriage, I moved to Vancouver, which was really a hard decision to make because the first 2 years especially, you know, like being a single mom and really not, at the time it was, I couldn't get a job in the school system because there had been a cutoff, you know, just freeze on hiring that the year I moved over. Because before I came over to, I worked for the San Jose School Board as a post-secondary coordinator. And so just coming to the city was, you know, to Vancouver was quite a traumatic experience for all of us, my children included. The turning point in the past 10 years was about 4 years ago. Our association was planning to hold a residential school conference because by then a lot of the issues of the residential school was coming to the fore. You know, so we decided that yes, we'd like to hold a residential school conference. And we had received in the mail a notice of a workshop in Lethbridge. It was called Healing the Hurts of the Residential School. So 4 members from our association attended, and I was one of them. And the first day we were there, I guess the first thing that we encountered was there was no agenda. And we have been taught, well, you know, we expected an agenda. So we kept asking, I said, well, where's the agenda? You know, where's the agenda? And no one came, you know, and someone said, well, there is an agenda, but you'll just have to wait and see, you know. So when we did get started, one of the things, it was in a circle, and we were all invited one at a time to introduce ourselves, where we came from, and what we hoped to gain out of the week. And when it was my turn to go up, I shared with them, well, our association is planning to have a residential school conference. So I'm here in my capacity as executive director of our association to observe the process that you are using, and also to get contact resource people. And well, it was really interesting because one of the first things we did that day after lunch was to view a video called Healing the Hurts of the Residential School. And we were all, you know, it was very informal, so a lot of us were just sitting on the floor watching this video. And the video wasn't even into its first 5 minutes before it was like a dam had been opened up in me. And I just started to cry, and I couldn't stop. You know, it was just, yeah, it's never happened to me before. And then when I had to really examine it after, I realized that all those years that I had, because all I was seeing in the first few minutes were all the different residential schools pictured from across the country. And when I was home with my younger brothers and sisters, I had helped my father make that decision. In fact, I think I probably didn't just help him, I persuaded him to send my younger brothers and sisters to the residential school. Because for one thing, I had wanted to pursue my education. So I left the village for a year and came to Vancouver. But so all those years I had carried that guilt within me, you know, knowing what I had experienced in the residential school, and what I had lost, knowing that I had helped to really to persuade my dad to let the younger ones go to the school. So from then on, it was like a domino effect, I guess. Just the start of the healing process, and it's still going on. Yeah.